Welcome back to Black News Tonight. The Brooklyn Nets have barred Kyrie Irving from all team activities. This was in response to his unwillingness to take the COVID-19 vaccine. They also will not be extending his contract at the end of the season. The point guard decided to go to Instagram Live last night. He had some stuff to say. Take a listen.
It's just really about being true to what feels good for me. I'm still uncertain about a lot of things, and that's okay. If I'm going to be demonized for having more questions and taking my time to make a decision with my life, then that's just what it is.
Joining me now is the former NBA player Etan Thomas. He is the author of We Matter, Athletes and Activism. Also, Amin Elhassan is going to join me. He is a commentator at Meadowlark and a media host at SiriusXM Radio. Etan, thank you for joining me. How do you feel about this Kyrie situation? I mean, this is something that obviously has never happened in NBA history before. You got a guy who maybe at the peak of his powers, who helped put together one of the greatest basketball teams ever assembled, and he's not going to play because he doesn't want to get the vaccine, and the NBA is beholden to the New York state laws or New York City laws, which say that he can't play unless he gets vaccinated as a New York employee. So he's sitting this one out for so far. What do you make of it?
I mean, it's interesting. I've been listening to a lot of commentary and reading articles over the last week or two discussing Kyrie, and there's a lot with it. It's interesting. I noticed that a lot of the same people who praised athletes for using their platform and using their positions to stand up for what they believe in now are sounding a little bit like the right. They sound a little bit Laura Ingramish. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, a little bit like Tucker Carlson, almost, in the ridicule part. Now, we don't have to agree with Kyrie, but just the description. And I've been kind of amazed to see the way in which, people are using words like stupid and foolish and ignorant and everything. I'm like, wait a minute. That's what Sean Hannity and them do. We don't do that. So that's one of the main things that I've seen that I've really been disappointed in. We expect it from the right. That's what they did with Colin Kaepernick. Or they purposely misrepresented what Kyrie Irving's stance was, what Jonathan Isaac's stance was, Bradley Beal, all the people who said that they were hesitant in taking the vaccine. And like we heard Kyrie say in the clip, demonized them. And I've got to tell you honestly, Mark, I was kind of disappointed to see that because, again, that's what the right does. That's what I expect from Fox News, not from a lot of the people that I heard it from.
So specifically the Laura Ingraham reference you're talking to is when she told LeBron to shut up and dribble. And so the idea is don't speak about politics, don't talk about anything, just play basketball. We said, oh, wait a minute, that's wrong. Players have a right to use their platform and talk. But to your point, Kyrie's using his platform to talk. We just don't like what he's saying, some people, and myself included. I don't like what he's saying, but I wouldn't call him stupid. I just disagree with him. So he goes to IG Live, and he says, I'm not going through the media. I'm not going to go call up Stephen A. Smith. I'm not going to call Marc Lamont Hill. I'm not going to talk to Jamel Hill. No, I'm going to do my IG Live direct. The people are going to hear from me. He said because he's been demonized, because he wants to be heard and understood. Did he make his point on IG Live? Did he say the things that needed to be said?
I mean, he said that he wasn't retiring, which was reported all through the media, where they said that he was going to, quit and hang it up rather than take the vaccine. And he said, no, that's not true. The thing that I like about the players nowadays is that because it's not like when I was playing. We didn't have social media. So they could go right to their own platform like Kyrie Irving did and said, no, everything that person reported is untrue. All of their anonymous sources, I don't know where they got them from, but that is not how I feel. And that's the part that I respect about this generation because they're doing this so much more often. Now, again, do we have to agree with what Kyrie Irving is saying? No. But do we have to demean him and belittle him and demonize him because of that? That's the part that we can't fall into that category. And like I said, that's the Laura Ingraham category. That's the Bill O'Reilly category. And I've seen too many. I mean, we expect certain things from Stephen A. Smith. Since you brought him up, you mentioned Stephen A. Smith. We expect certain things from him. He's performative. He's going to talk very loudly, and ESPN's going to pay him even more money to talk even more loudly. That's what he does. But Stephen A. Smith aside, why would Kyrie Irving go to some of these different same reporters who've been demonizing him? I don't see why he would. Now, people are now saying, well, what is his clear message? What is his clear stance? Well, I mean, if you really want to, make somebody's stance of what they're saying seem really, really doubtful or demean them or discredit them, you'll do what is happening a lot of times in media today, all today on all different talk shows after Kyrie, made his statement on Instagram Live. But the point is, what he said is, I am not retiring. I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm still working through this process. I would like to play. Those are the main key points that should be the main takeaways out of everything that he said.
So again, you raised some important points here. Kyrie Irving absolutely clarified it. He's not retiring. That was something we heard he was going to retire if he got traded. Some people say he was going to retire not to get vaccinated. He took that off the table. He said he's not anti-vaccine, right, meaning he's open to the possibility of being vaccinated. That's an important point. But there were some other things he said that weren't clear. He said he was doing his research. He expressed that he was vaccine hesitant. But it's not entirely clear to me what will lead him to make a different choice. In other words, what does he need to find out in order to feel comfortable getting the vaccine? If he is willing to get one, wouldn't training camp be the time? Wouldn't the preseason be the time? The season starts in 5 days. If he hasn't gotten it yet, when is he going to get it? These are the types of questions I think he didn't answer very clearly. I mean, did you walk away with a sense of whether or not he's going to get the vaccine or not?
I walked away thinking that he was still working through the process, like a large portion of this country is still working through. If you look at the vaccination numbers per state, I mean, there's some are in the 50s, some are in the 60s. We have a large portion who are still working through that process. I just think it's interesting that, right now the NBA is 95% vaccinated. 95%. All right. So you look at different states all across the country, nobody's at 95%. And we expect the NBA to be at 100% because we want, the only thing that matters is for NBA games to start and for everybody to be vaccinated. I think that's a little bit unfair of an expectation to have for NBA players. They're working through the vaccine concerns and questions just like the rest of the country is. But one of the things I do want to say, though, Mark, is I want to hear more about the different people and demonization towards the different groups who aren't unvaccinated, like the NYPD, like the LAPD, like the Chicago Police Department, all these police departments all across the country that have said, not they're working through their research, not they're working through the process, they said, we are not getting the vaccine. You know what I mean? And those are at high numbers. You have only 60% of the NYPD and the 60% percentile who are actually vaccinated, but we're worrying about Kyrie. I mean, these are people who literally are coming interactions with Americans every single day, and they don't want to wear a mask. So, I mean, I just to put it into perspective, we're making a lot over one player per team that isn't vaccinated in the NBA. I mean, I know people want their basketball and understand that's what it's all about, but we got to put it into perspective.
Well, I think it's about basketball, but it's also about what it means for a public figure and a celebrity to advance a position or seem to be advancing a position that some people find troublesome. So I think it's both. I think there's some selfish basketball stuff going on, and then I think there's the public platform piece of it. But hang in there, because I want to come back after the break and talk to you. We got Amin Elhassan joining us as well, and we're going to keep this conversation going about Kyrie Irving, about vaccine hesitancy, and what it all means for the black community. Stay with us right here on Black News Tonight. Welcome back to Black News Tonight. We continue the discussion right now about NBA player Kyrie Irving and his decision not to get vaccinated and, of course, the aftermath of all of it. Back with me are the former NBA player Etan Thomas and the sports commentator Amin Elhassan. Y'all, Kyrie confuses me. I mean, I'm going to start with you since we're bringing you into the convo. In the IG Live, he said, I'm thinking clearly, not logically, whatever that means. He also said that he was being a voice for the voiceless. Who is the voiceless in this analysis? I'm not disagreeing. This is a sincere question. Who is the voiceless here? What is his thought process, you think? And why is he doing it?
Mark, your guess is as good as mine as who the voiceless are. He talks about people who are losing jobs because of a vaccine mandate, but that represents a sliver of the population. Also, when he says, I'm a voice for the voiceless, this was a man 2 weeks ago who had an opportunity on NBA Media Day. They call it Media Day because you have the attention of all the media. And there were questions about his availability, whether he was going to play or not, due to this municipal regulation. It's not an NBA regulation. This is a New York City regulation. And when asked about it several times, his response was, well, this is a private matter. I don't want to discuss a private matter. Brother, you can't talk about, I didn't have an opportunity to speak for myself. They spoke for me. I didn't say anything. When there was a day dedicated for you to speak on this matter, and you chose to opt out. You chose to say, I have nothing to say because this is my own private business. When you knew damn well it wasn't your private business. Regardless of whether everyone else is going through it, we knew. The NBA said, hey, if your local municipality says you cannot play in these games if you are unvaccinated, instantly that ceased to be a private matter and became, at the very least, an NBA public matter. A matter the media had a right to ask about, a matter that he had an opportunity to expound upon. He chose not to. So when he chooses several weeks later to dress up this whole, like, I really didn't have a chance and they spoke for me, it kind of screams ingenuous.
Okay, so Etan, what do you say to that, right? And I know you've been somewhat generous in your reading of the Kyrie Irving situation. Whether you agree with him on vaccines is a different issue. You're saying he's being somewhat unfairly assailed, that he's being demonized by folk, and that some people on the left have been treating him with the same animus that the right treats black athletes, telling them to shut up and dribble. But what Amin is saying is, wait a minute, he had an opportunity to talk. He was coy. He was difficult to reach. He bucked at the reporter's questions. He said it's a private matter, it's a personal matter. Are you going to play? It's a personal matter. Are you going to get vaccinated? It's a personal matter, etc. What do you say to that? Has he been forthcoming? Has he even been a voice for the voiceless?
Well, I have a little bit of a different take on it. You know, I did see where he said it was a personal matter, and I think he does have the right to be able to say that because they wanted specifics that he was not able to give them at that time because he was still working through his process or whatever that process was in order to be able to either take the vaccine or not take the vaccine. And that's what he said. He said he was working through that. So when the reporters tried to ask in different ways about a timetable, when do you think by training camp, by that, he just cut it off and said it's a personal matter. But I don't think that gives the media the right to fill in the blanks. And that's what happened after that. Then they had anonymous sources that were all incorrect. Then they had people saying that, okay, he's going to retire. He's going to refuse the vaccine. He's anti-vax. Now, clear, I will agree that he didn't specifically answer those questions the first time, but he had to go and correct people this last time because of all of those incorrect reporting that was done. Now, the thing that happens is when a lot of the media gets called out for reporting something that was incorrect, they immediately take offense. And we don't have to talk about the specific because he was very specific on the people who said that he was going to retire, and he said that it was incorrect. The people who said that he was anti-vax, and he said that they was incorrect. And so a lot of times when there's different things coming out and different narratives coming out, then it does kind of murky the water. It does kind of, like, okay, well, where is he then? Well, he's been where he's always been. He didn't say any of those. He's just answering the incorrect things that were put out. And for that, I don't fault him at all.
Okay. Now, but just in fairness, as a journalist, I can tell you, there's been times where I've done backgrounds, I've done one-on-ones, I've done off the records, I've done all kinds of interviews with athletes, politicians, etc. And they say one thing to me in my face, and then they go out to the press conference and say they've been misrepresented, they've been lied on, etc. So I don't want to assume that because Kyrie said he didn't say it, that means he didn't say it. I also don't want to assume that the media is right because the media also misrepresents what players say all the time. But I don't want to take Kyrie's word as gospel. Before we go, y'all, Stephon Marbury, and I only got about 45 seconds, because Stephon Marbury was all up in the comments on the IG, and one of the things he did was compare Kyrie Irving to Muhammad Ali. What do you make of that comparison? Is he doing something bigger than himself? Is he making a sacrifice for the people? I mean, I'll let you answer, and Etan, I'll give you the last word.
I'll go real quick on this one. Muhammad Ali fought against and unjust war against other colored people in another country that had nothing to do with him or other people of color in this country, who were treated like trash, who were called all sorts of names, and then expected to defend this country on behalf of its stellar background or resume. Kyrie Irving is standing up for people who are scared of science. I mean, even if you have questions about whether or not this vaccine is good or applicable or whatever, the idea that this could be compared to forcing people to go to war against people who have no quarrel with them, to me, that was one of the biggest facepalm moments that Stephon Marbury would ever compare what Muhammad Ali did to what Kyrie is doing here. And I'll give you a great example. On the great scheme of injustices done against people, lack of freedoms, lack of civil liberties in this country, forget about in history, just in the last year and a half. Where does a vaccine rank on that?
I mean, I gotta roll. We're over time. I'm gonna have y'all both come back so we can continue to unpack this stuff. I gotta roll and take a break though. Etan, Amin, thank you so much for your insightful comments.